Welcome to another episode of Coffee College. This is Omid G, the coffee professor. We're going to talk about peaberries today. You've probably seen peaberries here and there. They do get sold. Usually they're from Tanzania. And as we'll explore, there's no particular reason for that. So, first of all, let me show you what peaberries look like before I describe what they are. So here are some peaberries. These ones are from Brazil. Now you should be able to see that they're very roly-poly. Is that clear for everybody? They're small, they're roly-poly, and maybe it'll help if I put it up next to some Brazilian beans that are not peaberries. And now, you can see on one side here, we have the peaberries. On here, we have the regular size coffee beans. So what's going on? What's happening is coffee beans, of course, they're seeds. They're inside of a cherry. And then that cherry it's a little bit oblong, but it's mostly round. And inside of that is two coffee beans. And I should have brought some here to put them together, but the flat side of the coffee beans are facing each other. So they make a round. Here's two coffee beans. They come together like that inside of the cherry. And that's the natural way in which you find them. But then about 5% of the time, there's a genetic mutation that pretty much happens with all coffee cultivars, Arabica. I'm not aware of it happening with Robusta or Canephora, but it happens with Arabica. About 5% of the time, there's a consistent genetic mutation where instead of those two beans growing inside of the cherry, just one little tiny one does. These peaberries grow, and they're roly-poly. The other thing I'd like you to notice, which is going to be of relevance here, is that they're uniform in shape. In other words, one challenge coffee roasters have is with normal coffee beans, you're trying to establish a uniform roast. And part of that uniform roast is no scorching, even roasting of the beans. And how do you do that when one side of the bean is flat and one side is round, right? And so that uniformity of roasting is, just slightly more tricky with regular coffee beans. With peaberries, it's easy peasy because they're completely round. They're going to roast very uniformly. Now, let me say this. So coffee beans, good coffee beans, which should be anything you're buying, should be sorted. And so coffee beans have a screen size. And just like when the panhandlers would kind of sort with that sieve to try and extract gold and have all the sand fall through, well, sort of a similar process happens with coffee. Coffee goes through sorting. And then typically the screen size, I mean, you're rarely getting size 14. Either you're getting size 15, 16, so they put them together, or you're getting size 17, 18, which is the larger size coffee beans. Very rarely, I've seen out of India and a couple of other places occasionally, you'll get larger than size 18. Pacamara is a type of bean that gets quite large. Maragohipi gets quite large, and then you have some in India and some others. Anyways, I digress. So you have these different sizes of beans, and then one of the things that goes through that sorting process is the peaberries, which would always be the smallest of all. Now, it used to be that it was considered a defect and they would just throw those away. So peaberries used to go in the trash in the coffee process because they figured, it's a screw up, it's a genetic anomaly, it's not supposed to be there, it doesn't look good, it doesn't match, it doesn't fit, throw it away. Then after some period of time, people started to say, you know what? These have a unique flavor. And I have to tell you, the jury's out on peaberries. So you will find people who say that peaberries are the creme de la creme. They have a stronger, more concentrated flavor. They have more complexity of flavors. They bring more to your cup than you get from normal berries. And then you'll find people who say, I can't. They're good, but I can't really tell the difference. And as a consequence, I think a lot of coffee farmers, or at least the ones who are doing the final aspects of processing and putting it into burlap bags, are not even taking the pea berries out. So if you go and look at any bag of coffee you have, you'll very likely find um, that it'll have probably all the regular coffee beans will be of a consistent size, and that's because they've been sorted. But then there's a very good chance that the pea berries are mixed in there. And there's only one country I've seen that tends to sort out pea berries, and that's Tanzania. And what's the reason for that? I have no idea. They just like to sort it out. There's no other country that consistently sorts out pea berries. So the ones I showed you were Brazilian. I've seen Kenyan. I've seen not much more. Brazil, Kenya. Think I've seen Indian. And then Tanzania, you can get it all day long. So for whatever reason, they like to sort it out. Now, pea berries are exceedingly dense, and so it requires a different sort of roasting profile. They need to be hit with heat because anytime you're doing coffee roasting, you really need to penetrate that density. So for more high elevation beans that are very dense, for more large screen size beans that tend to be more dense, you want to hit them with the higher heat. I'm talking about charge temperature, the temperature that the beans are hit at when they go into the roaster initially, and then continuing throughout almost the entire roast, continuing with the high temperature, and then also having a very high rate of rise of the temperature in most cases. So you need to penetrate that. And so you could make an argument that's one reason to separate them out, but also just having them mixed in together creates a very nice melange, I think. So I don't have a strong opinion either way, to be honest with you. I can tell you that in the case of these Brazilian peaberry beans, it really makes a majestic espresso. It's not introducing more acidity, but it seems to introduce more body, I think. With some of the other beans, it does introduce a little bit more for me. And the jury, different people have different opinions. I tend to sense a little bit more concentration of the flavors that the bean naturally brings. Another unique aspect of pea berries is they need an inordinate time, in my experience, to degas. And so coffee beans need to degas after roasting for the gases and the carbon dioxide and so forth to expel. If you've ever had coffee that's not degassed, it just doesn't taste right. And I've never been able to find words to explain it other than it just doesn't taste right. It doesn't taste good. Something's seriously off, and it's very hard to put your finger on, but it's just bad coffee. Most coffees can degas in 24 hours. That's kind of my rule. 24 hours, you're good to go. The pea berries need almost 10 days. They're so dense that the gases have a hard time working their way out. And so that's yet another aspect. It's not a downside, but it's something you need to know. If you're going to be getting fresh roasted pea berries, you need to wait the 10-day period. So that's kind of it on pea berries. There's not a lot more to say because there's not a ton of science backing up, how they taste different. We do know that the density is different. And obviously the screen size is different. It roasts more uniformly. That's probably one of the biggest plus sides of pea berries is if you're roasting pea berries, you're always having round surface contacting round surface inside the drum. Whereas with beans, you have round surface and flat surface, and then you're trying to establish a uniform roast. Those are the main things. Look for pea berries, try them out, and if you don't go buy them, just open your bag of coffee and look in there and see, dig around for the pea berries. They happen between 5 to sometimes 10% of the time. So it's kind of a cool, fun fact, and maybe you find out that you really like pea berries. You try some pea berries, go look for it, Tanzanian maybe, and maybe you like it. And if you like it, then stick with it. Thank you very much for joining us on this episode of Coffee College. I'm Omid G, the coffee professor. If you like this episode, please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and we shall see you next time.